Hey Alma witches, how are you? It's Kristen. I'm just noticing that every time I want to make a video for you, I'm having a funky hair day, or it's kind of like dirty. So sorry about that. My hair does actually clean up. I can look decent, but I don't care about that because I want to talk to you right now. What I want to say is that I'm experiencing this phenomenon in my own life where I have been forced into doing some self-care, and I sucked at self-care for a very long time. And as a witch, I would like to address the importance of this. I mean, we give lip service to it a little bit in traditional Wicca, but I mean, any type of witchcraft, what you're doing is you're traversing energies and places that, if not dealt with correctly, can be very destabilizing in our lives. And particularly if you're a solitary witch, but really no matter what kind of witch you are, practicing good self-care is really key to not only being able to continue to practice, but to not letting certain witchcraft practices knock us off balance physically, energetically, emotionally, and particularly even, mental health wise. So fun fact about me, a lot of you know, some of you don't, that I'm a trauma survivor, and a lot of witches are. And part of the trauma that I experienced, I got out of this like 25 years ago, I want to say, but my abuser snapped my spine. And what resulted, and we didn't even know about it, I think I literally walked it off. There was one beating after which I couldn't walk for 3 days, but that's my theory, is that that's when that happened. But it was discovered when I was in my early 40s being diagnosed with fibromyalgia, which is common amongst people who are trauma survivors. And so what happens as I aged, I'm 53 now, my conditions got worse because that's kind of part of the aging process. But the thing is, I ended up really having a lot of different problems simultaneously that were comorbid with each other, and some are specifically just physical, and some also are, connected to the trauma and what have you. And so what I have been doing is, in the last couple months, I have been taking really good care of myself and getting the help that I need to get from doctors and care teams. And I've changed my diet. I didn't eat badly before, but I had a tendency to not always eat consistently well, or eat at all sometimes, because whoops, I forgot. And now that I have been actually monitoring my diet and monitoring my physical activity and, when I sleep and things like that, my husband got me a smartwatch so that I can know exactly, how my sleep has been, and I can record what I've eaten and that type of thing on the go. And I'm feeling really good. My skin looks better. I have more energy, which is great because fibro makes you very tired. And so what I want to do is just iterate to the people who are at whatever stage of witchcraft study you are at. I want to teach and or remind you that it is part of good witchcraft practices to really take care of yourself. Speaking as someone who comes from a tradition that does a lot of drawing down, which is transpossession, something that you should do only if trained to do that. And if you have support people there who can support you and help you accomplish that. So don't do it alone, or don't try to do it alone, please. Don't be like, I'm going to go try that now. Don't do that. If you want to learn about it, take the time to learn it properly. But I do a lot of drawing down, at least when my coven is meeting regularly. And that means taking the goddess into my body, and then she speaks to those assembled and interacts with them. And that sort of a spiritual, like heavy lifting exercise, and there are other examples, you know, if you do a lot of astral travel, doing heavy duty, intensive ceremonial magic, chaos magic can be very, very draining, as chaos magicians will tell you. So there's a lot of different witchcraft practices that can really like suck the life out of you if you don't maintain your balance. One priest in the tradition that trained me actually had to stop drawing down for a while because he went from right-handed to left-handed. And he's like, this is not good. That should not happen. So, you know, watch yourself for signs of imbalance and also cultivate some good practices for yourself. I know it can be difficult to do. Our lives are very busy. Our lives are crazy right now. It's easy to just forget your self-care. But just as I always harp on, you know, magical hygiene with regard to preparation, execution, and then cleaning up the kitchen, so to speak, after you do a working, you know, clearing your tools, clearing your work area, physically cleaning stuff that got dirty. It's important to not just like smudge yourself for sure, you know, do whatever you do to clean yourself, but also make sure that you've eaten, unless there's a reason for you to be fasting. I mean, there are some magical reasons to fast. If you're fasting and then you do the exercise that you were fasting for, I recommend that you have, like, in your workspace, something to break your fast with, so that you can immediately do that. Things like getting enough water, things like observing your inner landscape. You know, are you getting more and more angry? Okay, granted, there is a reason for us Americans to be more and more angry right now. I'm talking about anger that doesn't have a discernible catalyst. Because, you know, I'm angry all the time now because, well, gestures broadly at everything. But, you know, I'm talking about, like, suddenly or over time noticing that you have darker and darker ideas about things, or you start to have aggressive thoughts, or you start to notice depression, things like that. These things can come from lack of self-care and also from lack of magical self-care. So, you know, there's a reason why we feast after circle in Wicca, is that we are trying to ground ourselves after doing heavy energetic work. And so, you know, and the simple feast, the sharing of the wine and cakes, even if it's just you, you know, and the gods, is great, but it's not enough. You know, I would like to see you have, you know, a sandwich after too, or, you know, whatever it is that you like to eat that's good for you. Yeah, because now that I'm taking better care of myself, I really notice a difference. And I'm hoping that this is going to mean that I can do more things that I love, including working more. You know, I'm always going to have fibro. I'm always going to have PTSD. But it's how you handle it. And, you know, a lot of us have chronic conditions, and that's okay. It can be argued that some of the most powerful witches do have disabilities. My friend Richard, who was a witch long before I was, said that. He's like, witches always have health problems, and it's not because witchcraft is bad for you. It's because they have the health problems, and usually then they have to think outside the box because the normal things that we go to in our society to help us with those things don't help us, and so we end up seeking for something, and oftentimes we find witchcraft. And I know that witchcraft has really helped me tremendously in my life, as far as my happiness, my prosperity, my relationships, just my joy in life is tremendously helped by my craft. But that doesn't mean that I don't have to manage some of the things that the craft can set us off balance with. Doing hard, energetic work has repercussions. They're not necessarily bad, but they can be if they're not managed. So I'm going to ask all my witches out there to really take a look at your self-care. I mean, really, check to see if maybe you're getting enough nutrients. There's apps for that. Are you sleeping enough? Are you sleeping too much? Are you working too much? Well, we're all working too much. I mean, in American society, unless you're a very select person, a very small demographic, you're probably working too much, and sometimes we can't help that. There have been times in my life where I had 2 or 3 jobs, and I know some of you are experiencing that too. But at any rate, it is part of witchcraft to take care of the witch. And I think if you know other witches, it would be really great if you could get together and take care of each other. Sometimes my witches do that, my local witches. We had parties where we would do honey sugar scrubs on our feet and hands, henna our hair, do masks. Even the guys, so we had guys coming too, and then we'd like sit around and watch movies and, just be together and give each other back rubs and foot rubs and stuff. If you have people to do that with, do that, because the work of a witch is even more important now than it has been in times past, because the witches are being called upon to try to make needed change. And each witch gets to decide what that needed change is, but the world is on fire right now, especially in the US. So if you're a US witch, my heart goes out to you, and I have a Reiki grid set to help all of us. I appreciate backsies if you can do that. Anyway, take care of yourself, witch, because you matter, and it's easy to forget that that's part of witchcraft. All right. Nice to talk with you. Stay focused. Happy Samhain if I don't see you before then. Okay.